This video will look at US pressure groups. This video will cover the following topics of the US pressure groups module. It will look at what is the extent of political pluralism in the US, what typologies can be used to describe pressure groups, what methods and tactics do pressure groups use to influence decision making, how do pressure groups fund elections, what is the role and significance of political action committees and super PACs regarding electoral finance, why is there debate about the power of pressure groups in the USA? And finally, we will do a comparison with the UK. Pressure groups play an important role in American politics. In America, as with other democracies, other institutions exist, apart from the political parties, to organise and transmit to government and politicians the view of different sections of society. Pressure groups allow this to happen. These organisations are pressure or interest groups, and they provide the link between the people and the government. In America, the title of pressure group has all but been replaced with the title of interest group. Therefore, an organisation such as Greenpeace would lobby for the interest of environmental issues. The pro/anti-gun groups would lobby for the interest of those concerned with either side of the gun issue. The differences between pressure groups and political parties are often hard to see, but generally, political parties nominate candidates for elective office, seek to win, and then staff these offices by appealing to the electorate. A key word that we must understand is pluralism. Pluralism is a theory that political power does not rest simply with the electorate or the governing elite, but is distributed among groups representing widely different interests. The theoretical basis of pressure group activity is to be found in pluralism. There is a high probability that an active and legitimate group in the population can make itself heard effectively at some crucial stage in the process of making decisions. Whereas political parties seek to win control of government, pressure groups seek to influence those who have control of government. Pressure groups vary in size, wealth, and influence. In the US, they operate at all levels of government, federal, state, and local, and they seek to influence all three branches of government. To understand pressure groups, we must first look at political pluralism in the US. The First Amendment includes the right of the people to peacefully assemble. This freedom of association gives pressure groups their constitutional right to exist. In theory, pressure groups deliver political pluralism by inducing politicians to take account of a broad range of ideas from across society. This may pit different pressure groups against one another. For example, Americans United for Life campaigns against abortion and is opposed to the aims of pro-life Planned Parenthood. Pluralists believe that this disagreement is healthy for a democracy, as it allows the people and the government to hear both sides of the argument and reach the best possible decision after public debate and consideration. Many of the most significant developments of US society, such as racial desegregation and the legalization of abortion, would not have happened without the work of pressure groups. However, people who support elitist theory are critical of the role that pressure groups play in the US society. Wealthy pressure groups can spend heavily on advertising, legal challenges, professional lobbyists, and electoral campaign spending, and as a result have much more influence than poorly resourced groups. Some of the best funded groups have prevented change that a majority of the US public supports. For example, the NRA has been very successful in resisting the introduction of gun controls, despite more than 60% of Americans supporting more restrictive gun laws in 2020. Progressives also argue that wealthy corporations are able to use their resources to influence politicians to their advantage, leading to a system that prioritizes the needs of the big business over policies that could reduce inequality. Pressure groups differ from political parties in that they aim to influence the politicians who wield power rather than winning elected office themselves. They do not put candidates in elections, but many choose to campaign actively for a candidate who supports their gender. Different types can be used to describe different pressure groups. They are broken down into two camps: insider and outsider groups, and promotional and interest groups. Insider groups have close ties to government or one or both of the main political parties. Examples include the American Medical Association, the US Chamber of Commerce, and the NRA. They are well funded and spend heavily on lobbying and election campaigns. They also possess specific professional expertise that ensures policymakers listen to them. Outsider groups do not enjoy close links with the political establishment. Instead, they attempt to influence politicians by generating public pressure, perhaps through marches or through direct action. They are frequently anti-establishment, meaning they are frequently opposed to the existing political system. For example, the group Climate Direct Action ran valve turner protests in 2016, in which members turned off the valves of 15% of the US crude oil imports for nearly a day. Several members were convicted on felony charges, and the group was subsequently classified as extremist by the Department of Homeland Security. Promotional groups, also known as cause groups, promote a particular cause that they believe will benefit society. Members of these pressure groups are said to be driven by altruism and not self-interest. Examples include environmental groups such as Greenpeace USA, gun control groups such as Every Town for Gun Safety, and civil liberties groups such as the American Civil Liberties Union. Interest groups campaign for the interests of the members of the group. Interest groups include unions such as the AFL to CIO, which are focused on improving the rights and pay and working conditions of their members. It can also include business or trade groups such as the US Chamber of Commerce. It can also include professional organizations like the American Bar Association. Groups that represent individuals from the same social group, such as the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, the NAACP, represents African Americans. And then there are religious groups such as the Christian Coalition of America. In US politics, the term interest group is also sometimes applied to large corporations if they are acting in a similar way to a pressure group, by lobbying government and funding election campaigns. Alongside the typologies of insider, outsider, promotional, and interest groups, you can also have sectional and causational interest groups. Let's start by looking at sectional pressure groups. Business and trade groups class as this type of pressure group, along with labour unions, agricultural groups, professional groups, and intergovernmental groups. The US Chamber of Commerce and the labour unions are of great importance. The US Chamber of Commerce represents thousands of different businesses across the nation, for example. Labour unions usually represent a particular trade, such as the Union Auto Workers or the Teamsters, which represent truck drivers. Alternatively, Americans might join a group that represent individuals with a common gender, ethnicity, religious, or social characteristic. For example, the National Organization for Women, NOW, or the NAACP. Causational groups include single interest groups, ideological groups, policy groups, and think tanks. These campaign for a particular cause or issue, promoting broader issues that they might consider as beneficial or a right for society as a whole. Therefore, the cause group's motivations might be described as more altruistic and less selfish than of an interest group. Americans are more likely to join social, charitable, civic, political, and religious groups, although they are less likely to join a trade union. On a whole, Americans subscribe, write, phone, petition, protest, and march more than any other citizen in most nations. Single interest groups such as the NRA or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, National Abortion and Reproductive Rights Actions are examples of causational groups. Ideological groups such as the American Conservative Union or the American Civil Liberties Union are also causational groups. Think tanks could be seen as another type of causational groups. Think tanks conduct research reports and write for publications in leading broadcast newspapers. Most have an ideological slant and are therefore classed as a causational group. There are problems, however, with the sectional causational typology. Many pressure groups combine elements of both categories and are known as hybrid groups. For example, the National Rifle Association seeks to protect the interest groups of its gun-owning members, but also seeks to promote more widely a defence of the Second Amendment and the role/status of responsible gun ownership in the USA. There is also problems with the insider-outsider typology. These classifications are too rigid when pressure groups' status might be fluid. For example, some pressure groups can become more influential when a certain party dominates politics. For example, conservative religious groups such as the Family Research Council can expect to be listened to carefully by Republican administrators.